Hey, this is Samir, and I'm going to show you what the latest online update, namely the version 1.50.21, is giving you. And well, first should be mentioned, of course, a lot of bug fixes were there again, mostly the ones that have been reported in the bug database, which I'm very thankful for. And several crash bugs were fixed, and well, DPIT Effex is now in a very stable state, so very satisfying. I worked on a pretty heavy scene with a lot of particles in the last 2 weeks, and I didn't encounter any crashes or any misbehaviors or something like that. So, well, that's pretty cool. But we also had a lot of improvements and additions, which I would like to show you quickly. And I'm going to start with fresh setup, so you also know how to set these things up. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we can now use the particle systems like thinking particles and simple particles and fluid particles to emit implicit particles, so water or liquids. So let's just try that and create a liquid setup here. And we see we have the default emitter, which I'm turning the water emission off now, so don't generate water. And right now inject the fluid particles and swoop, add some particle samples, fluid particle samples. We also already see that they instantly generate the water particles around them, and I can control this by going here into the fluid particle settings and the particles tab, and so to emit the liquid or not. So that's how it's done. And also let's just let them create it in the initial frame. So that's a new way to simply kind of create different emissions, especially when you're working with custom meshes for emission. So let's just switch here to mesh, and let me create I don't know, let's create a landscape here like that and add that as a emission source. And the difference is that instead of requiring a level set or something, we know that the fluid particles are actually created on the surface of the polygon object, so this gives us a different kind of freedom to create water on the surface. Let's just maybe create some more fluid particles, let's say 1,000, and we can see they're generated directly on the surface. And this is quite a nice different way of also creating more splashy scenarios. Well, you know, just another different nice way of creating water. And of course we have quite a lot of particles now generated here already, 500,000 here. But well, that's a great way to add more custom liquid emissions. And as I already mentioned, this also works with thinking particles and simple part, which I will be doing quickly now. Here, select the landscape object, create a simple particles emitter, and swoop. Here we have our simple particles. Go into the liquid solver, simple particles, tick it on, drop the simple particles emitter, have the liquid field here again, and well, actually that's about it. And here we have the simple particles generating water emissions, right? So we could now simply mesh that thing and get our stripes of water emitted by these simple particles. So pretty cool, pretty fast. Well, next thing I would like to show you is the new support for the R12 Dynamics body tack. let's just create a gas setup here, and let's say we want to make a small explosion here, so I add some smoke emission like that, give it some pressure like 8, and I let this happen for 8 frames, so we get a nice boom, and that's it. So let's just assume this is an atomic bomb or something like that. And well, and I would like now to create a cloner object and just keep it simple, having some cubes inside of it. Make this a grid array. Here's, let's just create some more. 7, 7, like this, and I just copy that over so I know they have the same spacing. Alright, so I put this here, and I assume this is a building or something similar, and just to speed this a little bit up, I reduce the space here and increase the resolution. Put this like this, create a floor, a disk object here, put it in the middle like that, maybe a little higher. Ready in a second, I promise. Put the disk a little higher so we have the clones directly sitting on the floor like that. Alright, so we can now add a dynamics body tag here as an obstacle, so I turn off the dynamics to make it an obstacle, just being static. Oop. And I add a body tag also to the cloner, go into the collision, set it to top level so each individual element is individually dynamic. Alright, so we see they're kind of stacked on top of each other, and I also have an explosion right beside the structure, and as you can see now, nothing happens yet. Of course, there is no interaction yet. So in order to do so, to let them interact, I can create the FSS particle force here. I add the solver, turn off on the inside liquid here, it doesn't matter, we don't have a liquid, and that actually was it. So you can see now that the pressure, that the expansion of the explosion directly affected the clones and therefore the dynamics. And when I keep on playing this, we can see that the fluid velocity is now taking over the motion of our elements in the cloner. So you can directly let them be affected and interacted with the simulation without much handling or much expressive work as it was in earlier versions. So it's pretty fast, and we can also set a certain amount of influence the simulation has, so we can blend with the original. And so when I set it to 100%, this means that the original dynamic force that is exerted on the clones is taken into the account. So you can see we can burst away a whole building, and it's pretty useful. And we can do the same now because with the hair object in Cinema 4D actually. So it's also a new support for Cinema 4D's hair. I can do this quickly, I should mention that this of course also only happens inside of the container, so all the forces that are defined in the container can be affecting either object with a dynamics body tag or with hair on them. Go into the simulation now and create some hair. Just add hair here. Oh, actually I should have put it like this. Okay, we have our hair. I reduce this now just to show you how it works. Well, actually we don't have to do much here either, because the forces tab uses an exclude by default, so it should include the particle force. And here you can see that the explosion also directly affects the hair. Boom. So when you have a big grass field made by hair, this will of course also make it well, actively being affected by the forces of your fluid simulation. Alright, so let's go on to the next thing. Alright, the next major change in DPIT Effex latest online update is the new force that is generated by moving obstacles. So it was already possible in previous versions, but sometimes it didn't work quite well, or it didn't work at all, and you had to crank up the values really high, or even have had to create separate emitters to make it work. Of course you can still create additional emitters, which is sometimes even very useful for artistic purposes, but you don't want to, well, crank up values or anything. You just want to tweak the values, and it should give you what you kind of expect from a physical behavior. So I have a setup here with a simple box and a liquid water tank here, and let's just turn this off to show you what the obstacle is actually doing. It just moves inside the water and then makes a quick turn. Alright, so we have translational forces, so it is moving into a certain direction, and then we also have rotational forces, which is the rotation part here when it turns. Alright, so let's just make a test how this looks with the obstacles here, with the obstacle that we have defined for our fluid simulation. So when I run it now, it of course goes into the water, but actually currently it will not do much. The only thing that happens here is that the water body is kind of pushed away by the obstacle volume itself. So we already see that something happens here, but that is only because the body is inside the water, and we can't have two bodies at the same place, so the water is kind of pushed away, and therefore we get this effect, which looks alright. But actually we don't have any moving obstacle forces here, because what I didn't do yet is to activate the calculate obstacle movement forces. So first of all, when I have moving obstacles and I want them to exert a certain force, I have to activate it here. Alright, moving obstacles activated in the simulation tab of the solver. Alright, so but we also have here the translational and rotational forces for this obstacle, and when I turn them to 0, we have the same effect that we had before, right? So we have the obstacle moving into the water body, and the particles of the water body are pushed outside of the obstacle, so they don't take the same space that the obstacle is taking, and we get this kind of motion that we think is already a correct physical motion of the obstacle. but it actually isn't. We can see that we don't have any wave that is generated around the body because it is moving into the water, and we don't have splashing away by the turnaround of the object, so by the rotation. So let's just take a look at the effect that we get when we turn off the moving obstacle forces here for the box object. So let's just crank this up to, let's 20. So we now should get a certain force that is affecting the water simply by the movement of the object. So the translation. And I just look from the top because we can see the space around the object much better then. We can already see that at this point we get here a certain wave, and also this is moving differently now, a certain wave that is generated by the translational force of the moving object, of the moving obstacle. So we now get here the wave, the capillary waves, I say, that we were expecting beforehand, right? So we can already see that this has a much different effect now on the water body than we had before, where we already only had these forces that were simply due to the pushing away of the water by the obstacle body. But now we also get these waves around the object because it was moving into the body, into the water body. All right. But okay, so that's already a great improvement over the first version where we had no forces. And now let's just add some rotational forces too. And let's just, I put it to 10. It's a little high for the rotational forces, but we will see that this has quite an effect also on the water now. So the masher active, so it meshes each frame. I could have turned it off to make this a little faster, but it's a little more convenient like this. And we can already see now here that we can, what we get from this little rotation that we already have now in these two frames, from frame 10 to 12, that we already get a nice pushing away from the obstacle. And we'll get some splashing around now from the rotational forces of the rotating obstacle here. So this looks very much more different than the first version without any of these two forces of the translation and rotational forces. So this works now pretty nice in this new update, and of course I advise anyone to download it. And well, gives you much better behavior now, and it's much easier to create some of these splashy scenarios with moving obstacles now.